Welcome to Spiritual Ambition, where we tune in to awaken our divine nature and explore the provocative inner force compelling us toward our fullest potential. If you've achieved external success but feel a deeper calling, if you're tired of dimming your light to fit in, and you know there's a more powerful way to live and lead and love, you're in the right place. Host Donna is a best-selling author, modern-day high priestess, and catalyst for personal transformation. Together, we're birthing a new paradigm of loving leadership, integrating our humanity with divine wisdom as our individual awakening serves collective evolution. Here's your host of Spiritual Ambition, Donna Bond.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. This is episode 10 of Spiritual Ambition. I am Donna Bond. Today, our show is called Life's Divine Artistry. What masterpiece is unfolding through you? And we have a very special guest who's going to talk with us about his sacred soul plan and his sacred soul journey. We're continuing the theme this week where we're looking at how life is intervening in such a way that it's bringing forward our divine gifts, bringing forward our unique contribution to the whole. Our sacred soul plan is the architecture. It is the artistry itself that shapes us and molds us into our fullest realized potential. I think of that Michelangelo quote. Michelangelo said that he carved away everything that wasn't the David. And then he was left with the magnificent sculpture of the David. If you've seen the David in Paris, I don't think it's in the Louvre. My guest will probably be able to correct me and tell us where it is when we bring him on. If you've seen it, just drop a note in the chat. Welcome, everyone. Catherine, hello. KB, Jennifer, thank you so much for being here. We're going to begin, as we always do, closing our eyes, bringing our attention to our heart space, and together calling in our sacred container, our sacred space. So just take a nice deep breath in and just letting go and exhaling, knowing this is your opportunity for a time out. This is your gift to yourself to slow down and to tune in, to tune into your own heart, your own plan, your own life, your own unfolding, to tune into the divine artistry that's working itself through you, through your relationships, through your health, through your work in the world, through your creative expressions, through your challenges, through your obstacles. Knowing each of these moments of trial are shaping us, carving us, shining us into our brilliance, our wholeness, returning us to the truth of who we truly and really are as spiritual beings, making our way through this epic human adventure. Infinite universe, we call ourselves forward into your loving. We ask to be cleared, filled, surrounded, and protected with the clear white light of living love. We ask that any karma, negativity, or imbalance, any distortion, misalignment, disillusionment, any old ideas, false notions, stale belief systems, any energy or vibrational frequency that is vibrating at anything less than the frequency of divine loving that may be residing anywhere in our consciousness, mentally, physically, emotionally, subconsciously, or energetically. We ask that anything with a resonant frequency less than divine loving be lifted and transmuted at this time, taken to the highest realms of light and sound, and dispersed back into the nothingness, into this space. We recognize grace, light, love, joy, upliftment, creativity, compassion, artistry, magic, allowing, compassion, connection. We acknowledge and we welcome those divine beings of light who love each one of us unconditionally, who work for the divine plan and who work for the light. We welcome only you into our sacred circle here today. We ask for your support and assistance in bringing forward healing, revelation, and wisdom of the heart that will resonate most profoundly with each individual here for their highest good and the highest good of all concerned. We are so grateful for the opportunity to come together, to close our eyes and to tune into our hearts, for our breath, for our minds, for our life. For this and more, we say thank you. So be it. Hello, everyone. Welcome in. Welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. So our last episode, we talked about our Sacred Soul Plan. Our Sacred Soul Plan is our spiritual curriculum. This is quite literally the unfolding life that we move through. It's our work in the world. It's our relationships. It's our overall health and well-being. It's everything that has to do with the physical reality and how we move ourselves through it. And as we move ourselves through this sacred soul plan, we face obstacles and challenges that are sculpting us into bringing forward our divine gifts. The episode before that one, we talked about our sacred soul signature. And this sacred soul signature that each one of us has holds the code for your fullest potential. We each have an entelechy. So if the entelechy of an acorn is an oak tree, or the entelechy of a caterpillar is a butterfly, you have an entelechy and I have an entelechy. And this entelechy is brought forward. It's held and contained in our sacred soul signature. And the only way that we can get it to blossom, to grow, to reach for the light is by making our way through our sacred soul plan. And as these two things intersect with one another, we have the unfolding of our sacred soul journey. But today we're going to focus a little specifically on other people's journeys besides my journey. And I am going to perhaps invite some guests from the audience backstage to possibly talk with me today about your sacred soul plan. But first and foremost, as we look at artistry, I would like to welcome a very special guest. Oh, actually, before we welcome him, we have our Sacred Circle of Light. I almost forgot. This is where we just take a couple of moments and we collectively bring our hearts and minds together and we intentionally send loving. We intentionally send light and upliftment to anyone who might need the blessing of our good intentions. So I have several people on my list today. And if you would like to drop the name of anyone in the chat, we can certainly include them. But we send the light out today to Tommy, Lou, John, Joe, the Goombas. We send the light to David, to Allah, to Christine, and to Jesse. So we just take a moment and we send that light up ahead. Well, I'm going to welcome now our lovely guest to explore his sacred soul plan. We have renowned fine artist Paul Bond, who is not only my special guest, but also my husband. And Paul is a magic realism oil painter. He was an exhibitor at the Festival of Arts in Laguna Beach, California for a 13-year-long run. His work is dreamy and magical. It's soulful and it's heartfelt. And it is my honor and privilege to welcome him here today to Spiritual Ambition. So let's give a warm welcome to Paul Bond. Mr. Bond, hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here today and for talking with us about your sacred soul plan. And, you know, it's so incredible to stand by your side and watch the lives that you touch through your work. And quite honestly, you know, it was through my witnessing of you and your gifts that when I was still working in corporate land, I witnessed you and I said to myself, I want that. I want that. I want to make a difference in people's lives in such a way that they cry and their heart opens and their consciousness shifts. And that is absolutely what you do with and for the people that you paint with. So because we're being specifically about spiritual curriculum, I want to start with a question. What needed to be transformed within you to allow your gifts to be brought forward out into the world? And everyone at home watching, you can work with this same question. Like, what needs to be transformed within you in order to bring your gifts forward out into the world?
Good question. I think that two things needed to happen for me because very early on, I grew up in an art. My mother moved us to an art colony. I literally grew up that high school mascots were the artists. So the signs of me being an artist were there early on, but I think I hadn't lived enough life to be ready for that, even though there's a part of me that was wanting it. I had to have some life experience because of the nature of my work. But the other thing I think that needed to happen, and this may not be the case for everyone, but I had to I had to get through my belief, past my belief that it wouldn't support me, which I think is true for a lot of people probably, because their life calling may often be outside the box. And so what I did, and I was shared this idea, this concept by my teacher. What I did is little by little, I started giving a little bit more time to my art because I was working as a commercial artist, a graphic designer. I was doing web design. I was doing real estate. I was doing a lot of other things, but little by little, I started spending a little bit more time creating art. As that art sold and as I saw the response, it allowed me to let go a little bit more of what I was hanging on to, the sure thing. Um, and I think for me, my journey, that was really key to go through that process. I think some people can do it more rapidly, but that's what it took me to let go little by little of that lifeboat that I was holding on to. And given our relationship, I think meeting you was also a key element because you, just like I reflected something with you, you reflected to me something that was really possible that I could really launch into this life as an artist. I thought it was going to take a long time for me to get to that point, but I think the dynamic that you brought forth in terms of the potential of that I could really step into that life was also a huge element that was necessary for me, and it maybe wouldn't have happened until I met you. It didn't. Obviously, it didn't. It was divinely orchestrated. So, does that answer the question?
It does. It does. But I want to address something here, and I think that this is so important for the audience. And I recently was viewing my astrology and was really grateful that the way my soul sort of lined it up for me, that my work in the world also gets to be my job. And your
Mm-hmm.
work in the world also gets to be your job. However, I sort of want to shatter this fixation that I think people have or feel that their work in the world or the way in which their individual contribution is meant to contribute to the whole has to equate to a job or like a
Mm-hmm.
paying career. And I would
Yeah,
love to just
that
hear your thoughts on that because, right, like you and I probably could go through the people that we know who are really on purpose, who really live in a way that they're on purpose. But that doesn't mean that like that's their career and that they're earning a
mhm.
paycheck from it.
Right, right. Yeah, so I spent from when I first started painting in my early 20s, it was in my mid 40s. It was a good 20 plus years before I really launched an art career. And during that time, I did make paintings. I might do one or two a year, or three or four, or none. And so I was heeding that call of my life's purpose by creating these works, but I wasn't I wasn't monetizing it. I mean, I was selling some artwork, but it wasn't really about creating something to sell. It was about creating something as an expression of myself.
Yeah.
And so after I made a decision to really give this a go as a career, I had I had some experience. I had fine-tuned my craft to a certain extent. And so it was easier to monetize it. But yeah, I agree with you that um, there are definitely many people that I run across whose life calling, they may be supported in it in some ways, but it's not always in terms of a paycheck. And there's of course lots of avenues of abundance that aren't about money, but yes, I do. Yeah, I agree with you. For me, it morphed into my livelihood, which I'm grateful that it did. But I would still be painting even if I was still doing real estate. I would still be creating art on the side.
Right. Right. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I just think that that's such an important point, and we all want to have that in such a way that, my purpose equates to a nice big fat paycheck and my dream job in the world. And while that does happen, that is not always the case. So I just think it's important, to recognize that.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, for you, what were some of the limiting belief systems? And I want you to go back because you've been doing this for a long time now. You've been doing this for 15, 16 years. You have been a professional fine artist. So I want you to go back to the time where maybe you didn't believe that it was possible for you to be in this space professionally, to be in this space accomplished, earning a living from it. What were some of the limiting stories that you told yourself, or some of the limiting beliefs that you needed to move through so that this gift could come through you?
Well, I think the biggest one was that it couldn't support me. And because of that, I didn't spend much time doing it for the first 20, 25 years. It was very limited. And I think I had this narrative going through my mind that it wasn't going to support me. So when I got out of high school and went to college, I ended up getting a degree in graphic design. So I thought, oh, graphic design will always have a job, which I did. Um, and I think I was hearing, whether he actually said this to me or I inferred it from him, there was the voice of my father who grew up in the Depression, and he just wanted me to have safety and security, which is what he wanted in his life. And we all want for our kids, but I think that equated to, yeah, fine artists, you better have something to fall back on. And so those two things kept me from going to art school, which I was kind of on the path to doing. And I did a graphic design communications degree. Yet over the course of those 20 years, things kept happening and things would pop up, and I was getting messages and signs from my higher self that, hey, this is here for you. This is bigger than a pastime, a hobby. And I think the one of the first ones that popped up was I'd already gone through commercial art school. I was working for a publishing company designing books, and I moved into a new rental house, and on the side of the house was this contraption that I couldn't figure out what it was. And by the time I opened it, I realized this is an easel. Someone had left this beautiful handmade easel in this house. And I started using that easel, and I used it for 20 something years. And there's a painting we'll show whenever you're ready. It was the first painting I created on that easel, which is also very symbolic for this journey. Thank you, is this one. This painting is titled On the Path of Knowing. And as I look back on it, I didn't know it at the time, but as I look back on it, this was very autobiographical. I was stepping out into this journey as an artist, as a creative person, as a soul incarnate who had something important to share. And it happens to come through my art and my poetry.
May I stop you? I have to just I really want to grab this teaching point for everybody who's watching. And, on our Sacred Soul plan, your soul has your back. Your soul has your back. And we talked about breadcrumbs. When we talked about our Sacred Soul signature, we talked about breadcrumbs, and our Sacred Soul plan. There are breadcrumbs that are being left for us. And this easel that you found on the side of the house, right? And you didn't even know what it was when you found it. You had to figure out what this contraption was. And it turns out to be a professional artist that I heard you just say that you used it for 20 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these are these gold nuggets, these breadcrumbs that are being left behind and around us, that it's easy sometimes to overlook them, but
Well, that was a
There was
loaf of
one.
bread. That was more than a breadcrumb. And I learned too, as I look back on my journey, because this conversation is causing me to reflect on some things that I either had forgotten about or never really fully realized how consequential they were. Um, as I look back, there was so many breadcrumbs and so many prompts, but it was always gentle. It was like my higher self was saying, whenever you're ready, whenever you're ready, whenever you're ready,
Oh, I
you
love that
know?
you're saying this, Paul. I love that you're saying this. This is another really, really important message to send home to everybody. Our soul is not going to give up on us. Our soul has
Mm.
our back. And the soul is not in a rush. The ego is in a rush. My personality is in a rush. It's my ego
Right.
and my personality that wants to hurry up and figure out, like, what is my purpose and what is my contribution to the whole? But our spirit will wait. And our spirit
Yeah.
will wait until we have all the pieces, and we can't often see the pieces when we're in the middle of them. We can only see the pieces when we look behind ourselves, and then we see
Yeah.
these trails that have been left behind us.
Hmm.
But I love your comment that, your soul was just like, I'm patient. I got the rest of time,
Yeah. And if you
however
don't
long.
do it in this life, we'll pick it up in the next one. It's like that's how patient it was with me. And I had to
Yes.
I had to get some life experience too for me to come out with the art that I'm now creating. Had I gone to art school at 18 or 19 and learned someone else's art technique, it would have been a very different path. I might have been monetarily successful, but it wouldn't have been what it is now. No way. I know that for a fact. And,
I
you
want to,
know, go ahead. I
no,
was just gonna, I
please.
was just Yeah. Well, I was gonna tell the very short story if you like about Sojourn. Was this a good time?
Yeah, yeah. Let me
Yeah.
pull up Sojourn.
So this is a painting I created called Sojourn. Um,
Oh,
and this painting was done as a result of having been a hospice volunteer and been present with several people who had died. And you may not be able to zoom in. Can you zoom on that bubble? Probably not. But there's these bubbles that are floating out over the ocean and they have a flame in them and they represent our soul, our spirit, um, outside of the body, our pure essence. It could be our spirit after we've died or before we've incarnated. And after I don't know, I'd been in my art career, like it was really kind of taken off at this point. And I had this painting hanging in an exhibit and I got a call from a woman who was in tears and she said, I'm standing here in front of this painting, Sojourn, um, and I need to tell you this story. And the story she told me is that she was on the beach because this exhibit was at a place about, I don't know, a mile and a half, 2 miles from the beach. She said, I was at the beach. My mother had died the day before. I was sitting on the sand and I was praying. I was sending love to my mother, and someone behind me was blowing bubbles. I didn't realize it, but all of a sudden these bubbles started floating over my shoulder out over the ocean. And I knew in that moment, this is the woman talking, that this was my mother sending me a sign. I got up and I left the beach and I just started walking through town. I didn't know where I was going. And I walked into this art exhibit. I walked straight to your painting. I didn't roam around. I was led in front of this painting. And this is confirmation that my mother is communicating with me. She's there. She loves me. She hears me. So this woman gave me this profound gift of this confirmation that this is my soul journey, creating this artwork. It's not just a vocation. I love it. It's fun, but there's something moving through me that's much bigger than me. That's often for other people. And so that was a really cool experience and just very confirming. for me.
Yeah. And I know that there are a handful of those types of stories where the invisible world is really communicating through you onto the canvas, through your divine artistry, and being able to make those connections in real time, in real life, with real people. It's so beautiful and magical. Our sacred soul plan, it doesn't come easy. We are meeting challenges in our life again and again and again on these paths of expansion that we're on these paths of evolution. And when you think about the challenges, can you share with us like one of the biggest challenges that you've had to face on your path as it relates to your art in the world, and sort of how did you grow through that, and how are you an even bigger, better contributor today as a result of that challenge?
Well, I think there's two things. One is that as an artist, I was always looking at other art, and I would often compare myself to other artists that were doing the type of art that I was drawn to. And so it was very intimidating because I'm mostly self-taught as a painter primarily. Um, so I had to get over that. And somebody at one point told me, he's like, this is your voice. This is the voice that you're singing with. You can't change your voice. Just go with it. Just embrace it. Just go with it. And I was able to then move through that uncertainty, that imposter syndrome about, that I'm just making illustrations or whatever. And it has morphed into me really creating what I feel are really beautiful, beautiful paintings that I'm very proud of. Um, and I think the other thing too, challenge was probably the financial piece, thinking that everything I did I needed to figure out how to make money from it. And so I was often pulled, like I got pulled into a whole real estate career that I did very well with, and I made a lot of money doing. But it was kind of a side journey. And the art was still there, it was still waiting for me. Um, but I did that for the money, thinking, oh, I need to support myself. And I went several years down this whole other path of doing real estate in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Um, the irony is after I went through that process and came back into my art and went through my art career, I'm now doing better financially than I've done doing any of the other things that I thought I needed to do to support myself. So, um, I just had to go through that. I think I just had to go through that process of, this is not going to support me. And well, yeah, it's actually supports me beautifully.
My last question for you, Paul. Have you ever been lost on the path of knowing?
Oh yeah. You know, you know that to be true. And that happened pretty recently. We moved in terms of a move, we moved, made a move. And so I was no longer exhibiting at this venue in Laguna Beach, California. And I stopped doing art for several reasons. I stopped and I did some commission projects, but I wasn't doing my own art for a couple of years after doing it nonstop for many years. And I went into a depression. I went into um I went into a depression, but I've never been in a depression before. I've had heartache, that kind of thing, but it passed pretty quickly. But this was something existential for me. And it was through, I'm sure I can share this, but in the relationship with you, you mirrored to me hey, this is not sustainable. It's not sustainable for me, and it's not sustainable for you. And God bless you for that. Thank you. Because that allowed me to determine, okay, I need to get through this. And I tried multiple things, but what I didn't realize was that it was my art. I had given up on my art. I had cut that lifeline it was like the umbilical cord that was feeding me from the mother, you know? And the first painting I created after that hiatus and coming back to my art, you can pull it up. It's called The Graduate. And it relates in many ways to my life as it changed because we ended up building a house and a studio in Costa Rica. And so the sloths, who are always perpetually smiling, because that's just the way their faces are, um, this is the first image I created that helped pull me through. And then I did a whole series of these pieces. And so, the mushrooms are also symbolic of the process that I went through in terms of like I ended up using microdosing to help me emotionally to pull me through. That was the medicine that helped me at that time. And then there's the other painting, if you want to pull it up, called The Sage.
I want to say one thing about The Graduate, though, that
Yeah.
occurred to me, which it hadn't occurred to me until today when we were sort of putting this together for the show, is The Graduate is also sort of a nod to your graduating in Costa Rica, right? Where we live in this really unpredictable place and there's like all these challenges constantly that we're trying to figure out. And you finally like got your arms around them. It's like you graduated in Costa Rica school.
Yeah, I mean, class is always still in session here, but I think I did reach a level of surrender, coming into alignment with this is my new life now. And I was led here, I was guided. And this is the other painting I did as part of this series called The Sage, that also for me feels very autobiographical. Now, I'm 61. I don't know how old you need to be to reach sage status, but I feel like I've lived a lot in my 61 years. And I like to think I have a certain amount of wisdom um, that this painting reflects. It's how I'd like to see myself in that knowingness and that sense of, I don't know, pride is the right word. It is pride. I'm proud of what I've created and who I've become
Yeah.
and
Yes.
who I am.
Yes. Me too. I was trying to put us both back and I
Oh,
just in this tender moment, I want to send the light out to Carol Ann and Geraldine, who are going through some challenges in their life right now. And, we are on this sacred spiral of becoming. And I think one of the challenges for we humans is, Carol Ann, hello, much light to you. One of our challenges as human beings is that we have this false belief that we're going to arrive at a destination or a station where life isn't going to have any more rocky moments. And I think sometimes when we get on a spiritual path, maybe we buy into that there's like this nirvana that we're going to arrive to. And in my experience, that's not really the case. And, as I age and reflect more deeply on my own challenges, I truly am understanding that it is these challenges that quite literally shape who we are and who we are becoming and who we are meant to be. And we cannot be who we are meant to be without these trials and these challenging periods that we move through. And, you know, we look out to the state of the world and we want to have a moment of peace and a moment of grace and a moment of reprieve for the difficulties, the many difficulties that we see out there everywhere. All we got to do is flip on the news, or, you know, even on so much of the programming that's available, it's like people killing each other and struggle. So my heartfelt thank you to you for dropping in onto the planet these incredible meditations, these incredible contemplations, these incredible, I don't want to say escape mechanisms, but in a way I do want to say that. It's like, it's such a cool drink of water on a hot day to have the opportunity to engage with your work. And it's such a blessing. And I have had the unique privilege of like witnessing thousands and thousands and thousands of people. If you want to see Paul's work, by the way, you can go to paulbondart.com. Kelly will put that up on the screen, but paulbondart.com. One of the magical things that Paul does in his work is he's also not only a brilliant painter, but he's an incredible writer. And he writes these stories and these narratives that sort of get into the minds of these paintings. And in those shares that I know for a fact you're channeling from spirit, you know, you're channeling from a higher intelligence that is moving through you out into the world onto the canvas. And it's just such a blessing. And so thank you for doing what you do and for your contribution to the whole, Yeah. If there's anybody else out there today who would like to share with us a little bit about your sacred soul plan, Kelly is going to drop the link in the chat where you can go backstage, and I will just do a little attunement and see if we'll have you come on stage and talk a little bit about any challenges you may be facing and how these are connected to your divine artistry and bringing this forward in your life. Paul, any other thoughts that you want to share that would be helpful to anybody out there who maybe is lost on their path right now? Like they know that they have found the path, but maybe it's not working or things aren't lining up or they've got expectations that aren't being met. What is your guidance to somebody who might be a little lost on the path of knowing right now?
Well, I think the beliefs that we hold, the beliefs that we hold shape our world. They shape our life experience. And there's any number of beliefs that we might have at any given time around stepping into our soul's calling, stepping into something new that we know is going to bring us alive. So there's a couple things that I would say. One is that for me, I had to do some ego negotiation. So my ego wanted to keep me safe. My healthy ego wanted to keep me in a safe job, in a safe environment. And that's its job. And God bless you, ego. You're doing great. However, when I started proposing going outside the box and into a new career that many people go into as artists and don't make it. Probably the majority of them don't make it. The odds aren't very good. Um, and so I had to, going back to what I was saying before, I had to give a little bit of time. So my contract with my ego is, okay, you keep doing your job, you're doing great, but we're going to make a little space for this other thing for me to do my art. I don't know where it's going to lead. I don't know if it's going to make us money, but little by little, we're going to just start making some time for this. And we shook hands. The deal was done. And little by little, I started spending a little more time creating art. More of my paintings started selling. New negotiation was made. All right, we're going to give a little bit more time. We're going to give a little more time. The ego started relaxing, saying, okay, yeah, I can see that how this is going to support you. I'm speaking in the ego's voice, but I really feel like this is how it happens in our psyche. And before I knew it, it was, half of my time was spent painting, and I was starting to make more money for my paintings and for my other work. At that point, it was the momentum was going, we were rolling downhill. You know, the ego said, let's go for it. This is it. I'm all in. The other thing too, I would say is if there's other beliefs other than this isn't going to support me, um, really examine those beliefs. And this is where Donna, you can step in and help people. And, the idea is to ask yourself the question, what would have to believe to be having this experience? I'm putting all this time into my passion, into something, but it's not supporting me, or I'm struggling, whatever the storyline is that's happening in your life. If you can really drill into those beliefs and say, what would I have to believe to be having this experience or having this feeling or having this struggle? I guarantee you there's always a belief in there. And once you uncover that, usually you realize that it's a ridiculous belief, that it has no real basis in reality. And you can start looking for examples of people in the world who are bucking that belief, who are living, who are thriving despite of what you believe to be true for everyone. And then you can go into, once you get into that, then you can look at changing the belief. You can rewrite it and start living that. And there's, of course, more to this process. But, digging into your belief system, I think, is the other key thing that I think is important. And I can share more. Do you have people wanting to share? No?
Nobody's backstage just yet, and I'm just looking at the time. We're going to move into the celebration of Love's Alchemy, and for the celebration of Love's Alchemy today, we are celebrating divine artistry. So I would love if you have the time to stay with us through to the end. The celebration of Love's Alchemy is a gentle pause to recognize the extraordinary magic that is woven through our everyday lives. And every episode, we take a moment of loving celebration for something that might seem ordinary or even contrary at first, but it holds within it a spark of brilliance. As we celebrate and remind ourselves why we chose to take a body and come here to planet Earth, to come here to human land. So this is everything from the sweetness of a juicy orange to the blessing of an emotional trigger. We turn our attention to the less obvious causes for celebration and the little things that we might take for granted. And through loving appreciation and gratitude, we uplift ourselves and the vibration with the power of love by sending ripples of good juju out and across the planet. As alchemists of upliftment, we're turning the seemingly mundane into marvels of magnificence as we see the whole human experience as the alchemy of our wisdom. I'm going to just say that again. We see the whole human experience as the alchemy of our wisdom. And so today we are bringing our love to divine artistry. And even when I say it, divine artistry, it feels like serendipity. It feels like what some people might call coincidence, even though I don't really believe in coincidence. I believe in magical miracles that are happening all of the time. But divine artistry is like the imperfection of life and the imperfection of, when we think that we made a mistake, and that mistake really gets us on that path of knowing, or it's the reveal to one more clue that we needed to discover, that we needed to align ourselves with, that might have looked random, might have looked ordinary, like no big deal, but it really is divine artistry that is unfolding. You have any comments around that?
Yeah, no, I think you said it beautifully. I mean, the divine, like I think back about that easel showing up at the house.
Exactly.
That was divine art. How many things had to come together in creation for that to be brought to that space that I happen to be moving into at that same time? I mean, the artistry of life is whew, profound,
Yeah,
profound.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
My Apple story, which I don't have time to go into because it's too long and drawn out and there's too many pieces to it. But if you want to read the Apple story, you can get Original Wisdom, Harness the Power of the Authentic You. I recommend the Audible over the actual book. But I have this incredible synchronistic story of receiving like a really big wink from the universe that I was on track, that I was following the breadcrumbs, even though it felt like I was completely in the dark. And that was so much part of my sacred soul plan and the way that it needed to unfold. And I was given these little, nods and these breadcrumbs in the form of apples. So you can check that out in Original Wisdom. Timing, this is another big thing under the umbrella of divine artistry, is divine timing and divine appointments. You and I would have had a very different life if we had met in our 20s, but we didn't.
Yeah.
We met in our 40s. And all of the things that had to happen and happen cumulatively to bring us to the point of where we were, so that when we came together, this divine union had specific timelines. It had specific, I'm going to say specific agendas. Like our souls had an agenda. And, this could be a whole other share between the two of us. And, for the purpose of our relationship and our sacred contract, and how our sacred contract and sacred union then has sent a ripple effect out into the world, because I don't think I would be coaching without you. And I don't think you would be a professional painter without me. And so we have created, I see the Vesica Pisces, I'm being shown that right now. We came together for this incredible union that then has this broader ripple effect.
Yeah, and
So
we wouldn't have been ready anytime sooner, and we should have that
we
conversation
wouldn't have
in
been.
this format at some point. As you tell me the stories about like what you were like and who you were as you were younger, yeah, I'm like, I don't know that I either wouldn't have been attracted to that, or you would have just eaten me up and spit me out. One or the other, right? I mean, it wouldn't have ended well, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. So we give a nod to the divine timing that is so perfect for the divine artistry that is unfolding around us. And, I talk to so many of my clients, and, there's so much frustration. And for myself, you know, I went through my 20s and through my 30s and halfway into my 40s saying, I got to find my purpose. I got to find my purpose. I got to like know what my soul mission is. Like, how do I get on track with that? And I love that we have that inner, this is my definition of spiritual ambition, right? It's that inner quest to experience our divine nature. It's like that inner propeller that isn't going to give up on us. It's like it keeps us going. And I know people get so frustrated with the timing because they're like, I want it now. But what if we can just relax and know, like, you don't have everything you need yet?
Right. Well, can I interject something?
Matters. Yeah.
Well, there's oh, I'm forgetting her name. The writer, Eat, Pray, Love, Gilbert.
Elizabeth Gilbert.
Elizabeth Gilbert has a beautiful talk about hummingbird people, and she talks about, you know, people get mad at her because like, I don't have my purpose, and they're like, and so she has this talk about, for people that don't have that clear sense of purpose and that clear guidance, that they should, she doesn't say should be, but I'm paraphrasing, should be hummingbird people, which means be curious, go from flower to flower, follow what excites you, and it's very likely that that will lead you into a bigger purpose, a bigger, you know, vocation, a bit, whatever, and maybe not, but that curiosity is what will feed you. I think if you're not really clear about some purpose, I think that's a potential step in to that.
Yes. And what you're describing, you know, she speaks about being a pollinator and going from flower to flower as you're describing, but it's that action in and of itself that is the part that is on purpose. That is the part that is on purpose. And, you know, this is what I was saying earlier. Not everyone is going to have their soul purpose line up with a career and a job and a paycheck. It's not the case. And, you know, I also would go out on a limb here and say, my purpose is not to be a spiritual life coach. My purpose is not to be the host of Spiritual Ambition. My purpose is to be the expression of me, the expression of my energy, the signature, my sacred soul signature through all of those things.
Yeah, I've heard you say on this, to me and on the show, that our purpose as humans is to live our truest expression, our purest, truest expression of ourselves, and to bring that out. And in whatever form that takes, whatever form, you know, you could be an artist at conversation, at how you interact with people. I know many people that is their art, you know, because they're so true to themselves, and they're so true in their communicating, and they're showing up, and in their being present, you know. Yeah, that is all of our purposes, isn't it? Is to be ourselves fully, completely.
Yeah. And
fearlessly.
as we excavate our gifts, right? Like Kevin over the weekend in the workshop that we were together in, that I was leading, you know, Kevin talked about being a collaborator, and like, that's one of his gifts. So that's part of Kevin's purpose, no matter what that looks like, whether he's collaborating for his organization, or he's collaborating for his family, or he's collaborating, you know, on the sports team that he plays on. I'm just making shit up right now. But the example is like, that's how he's bringing forward his gift. And he shared a little bit about his sacred soul plan and how he was challenged with that collaboration and how that birthed through him as a result of the way his life was unfolding.
Yeah.
So I hope that everyone is taking away some gold nuggets from this conversation. We are just about out of time here. I am going to close our sacred space. Paul Bond, thank you so much for giving me your time and attention today, twice.
Thank you, Donna.
It was really lovely to be with you today.
It was my pleasure.
And everyone who is watching us from home, if you could please, pretty please, click like and subscribe on my YouTube channel to Sacred Ambition, or to Spiritual Ambition, Sacred Ambition, Spiritual Ambition. Then you'll receive notifications when we go live. You won't have to rely on my email that may or may not have the correct link. We're going to close our sacred space right now together. We're just sending the light on and up ahead to everybody who was present here today, anybody who may be watching the recording later, to each one of our individual sacred soul plans and sacred soul signatures as they unfold with divine artistry. We are now closing all energetic lines of communication between any of us, closing all open portals, gateways, channels, agreements, and lines of communication between any of us and the spirit world. We are grateful. We say thank you. We are closing this sacred space with love, in love, for love, by love, as love. Thank you for being here. We'll see you in a couple weeks. I have no idea what the show is about. I'm waiting for the download. Thanks for watching, everyone.